Okay, starting off starting off the fifth year here, I think this was as competitive of a roster and as tough of decisions to get down to, however you look at it, 53, or, there's a lot of moving parts with COVID IR and things like that, but there was a lot of really good football players that had to have some tough discussions with myself and Les this morning. But I also think it's a reflection of, what great men we have in that locker room. The way they handled it is with class, and hopefully we'll get a lot of those players back on our practice squad. But if they move on or if other teams claim them, then, that's a positive thing for them, and very appreciative of the contributions that those guys had, and excited about moving forward. We got a long way to go, and kind of excited about getting ready to attack this season with the group of guys that we do have. But there's always moving parts, as you guys know, as well as I do. So you guys go ahead.
Sean, are you expecting to put either or both Sean and Obo on short-term IR this week?
Yeah, Obo is more likely. Don't expect doing that with Sean, but Obo is a probable yes.
Okay, thanks.
What position group provided the most challenges as far as those cuts?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think that I could really go through a lot of different mechanics, but you look at the DBs. I think the outside linebackers was very difficult. We have a lot of depth that you guys will see illustrated with our offensive line. But really, I think there was a competitive roster all around. It's hard to single out, and like you guys talked about the other day, Gary, you were asking, if you told me a few weeks ago, did you envision keeping 3 quarterbacks, I would have told you no. And I think that's a real credit to Bryce Perkins earning a spot on the roster. But I think every situation and every position was really competitive. But I think if you said, all right, where do we have a lot of really good depth, I think the interior D-line is a spot that really stands out to me.
Coach, how difficult is it separating the business side of football with your personal feelings and getting to know these guys, personally, and then having to give them the bad news? Yeah,
I hope it never gets easier, because there's a human element that, part of how we operate is based on building and developing relationships with these guys. And, you care about them, and I think it's important for them to understand that. It doesn't mean that that exempts you from having to make those tough decisions. But I think all these players can appreciate just clear, open, and honest communication. It's not the easiest thing to hear if you do have to have those discussions that go in the direction that's not favorable for them, but you want to do it with empathy and consideration. And, again, I think those conversations just give you a greater appreciation for what special men we have in this building, and hopefully we get a lot of those guys back. But it never gets easier.
What went into the decision to trade Corey to the Packers, and did Johnny rework his deal?
He did. We were able to do that. Like I said, I think we had 2 starting punters on our roster, Gary, and clearly Corey did an amazing job of maximizing the upside and the interest from teams out there, knowing that, hey, I think everybody would agree that both he and Johnny are 2 of the best guys doing what they're doing. It's a very specific, position, and so Les did a great job of really exploring some options, and I think, what Johnny's done here, as I've mentioned long before I got here, is something that doesn't go lost on me, doesn't go lost on us, and I am confident that he's going to be the productive player that he's been, throughout the course of his career. I know he's motivated in the right way, and we're excited about him leading the way for us.
Are there any concerns because he's been on COVID, the COVID list, and has kind of gone through that may adversely affect his ability to come back as strong as you might like?
I don't think so. I mean, he feels good, so we expect him to return from the COVID IR fairly shortly and in the near future. And, we've kept in good contact. He's kind of pretty, for the most part, remained asymptomatic. And so we'll get him back sooner than later. And I know he's more motivated than ever to, have a great season and do a great job leading the way.
Does that take us through the decision to release Micah Kaiser?
Yeah, so what a stud of a human being, an incredible person. You talk about a guy that's consistently overcome adversity, responded the right way. Really what it came down to, Lindsay, was we kept 4, made it a really tough decision for us, and there's a lot of layers that go into it, but Micah Kaiser's a guy that's shown that he can be a starting caliber player in this league. He is somebody that I think I wouldn't be surprised if somebody claims him. And if they do, they're going to get a great man. They're going to get a great competitive, tough football player. But really more than anything, it came down to we kept those 4, and I could go into a lot of depth. But part of it is defense. There's a special teams element that definitely contributes to some of those decisions. But Micah was one of the more difficult decisions that we had to make organizationally, and he continued to epitomize all the things that make him a stud of a human being because of the way that he handled that. And you're not betting against him, figuring it out, whether it ends up being with us or whether it's somewhere else. You're going to bet on him to be successful.
In terms of your O-line, how did you sort of make those decisions, particularly about your depth players? We had heard some good things about Tremaine, but obviously him not being out here today and on that list.
Yeah, so Tremaine is he made the active roster. You're talking about Tremaine Ankrum?
Sorry, we just got it just now as you're talking.
Artist left that off there. So we kept 10. We kept 10 offensive linemen, and a large part of that, Jordan, is the fact that for you to be able to get 48 up, you're having 8 guys active on the roster. You're having got 8 guys up on game day, and so I think when you look at it, Tremaine did a great job of being able to play both the guard and the tackle spot. He's only gotten better. We've invested some time in him. And then a guy that, we were able to acquire in college free agency that Kevin Carberry did a great job along with the scouts of identifying is A.J. Jackson. He ended up making the active roster as well. But I think the depth that you have when you can go too deep up front is something that is really important. But we've got our starting 5, and then got Joe Noteboom, who you feel like is as good a situation in your swing tackle that has starting caliber resume, and I think he's healthier than he's ever been. I really expect big things from him. Coleman Shelton is a guy that we'll place him on COVID IR, but he's going to be on that active roster. Then you look at Bobby Evans, Tremaine Ankrum, and A.J. Jackson kind of rounding out that group.
And then I'm sorry because we just got out here and we're checking
Sure.
names off and everything, but I guess
I could tell you the names.
Yeah,
so he's a guy that might fall under that category with Obo.
Okay.
He got a knee the other day in the game. It happened fairly early in the game, Jordan.
Okay.
He kind of pushed through it, did a great job of gutting it out, but it might be something that he's potentially another one of those guys that fits in that category of possible short-term IR, and you get him back after 3 weeks.
Thanks. And then sorry, Ben Skowronek?
Yeah.
What's going on with him?
Yeah, so he's a guy that, he is on the active roster right now. And he's a guy that I think he's shown some bright spots. We had a vision for him when we ended up drafting him. It's kind of a freak accident the way he broke his forearm, but he was a guy that is on the active roster right now, and we're looking forward to getting him back. He can be out here. He had a red jersey on today, and we'll look forward to him being able to contribute in a contact setting in the next couple weeks.
Anyone who made it, who really surged in training camp or earlier, kind of came from outside the picture to into it?
Yeah, I think, Bryce Perkins is a guy that really stands out, Kevin, where a couple of these guys, they kind of change the trajectory of what you have kind of just laid out. If you said, okay, you're envisioning this amount of spots. I think you look at some of those guys at the safety position with J.R. Reed, and actually, because of some of the different nuances and moving parts, Juju Hughes will also be, one of those guys that is on that initial list that you guys really see. And so, like I said, you guys are kind of scrambling as well, and there was a lot of last-minute adjustments and addendums and a lot of things that we had to work through organizationally with myself and Les, the coaching staff and personnel, and I think we're all kind of just spinning. I'm going to be very upset with Artis after this that he had me do the media right now. I'm just kidding, Artis.
How early on did you know that Jacob had a good shot at making this team?
I think his role right now is with special teams. So he was always, he was pegged early in the draft process as somebody from Joe DeCamillis and Dwayne Stukes as somebody they identified that really is going to be able to make a big-time difference on special teams. And then he's got enough ability that's intriguing to figure out, all right, where is that skill set going to be best activated on the offensive side of the ball? Whether you look at him as a receiver or tight end, that's really to be determined. But he was a guy that we always felt like, because of his value to special teams, was going to be, part of that active roster more than likely.
And so with Perkins, do you envision he stays on the roster, or once other teams get their roster set and get into a few games with their systems, you can more safely put him on?
Hey, you never know, man. Maybe we might go with a 3-quarterback system, And you know what? We're working through that. I think more than anything, Gary. As of right now, I think what we all know is that the volatility of the end of the roster, whether it be through injuries or just changes that are inevitable, there's still the element of, all right, some of these guys that hit the claims, that it might make it a difficult decision. Do we want to put in a claim for that guy? And, it adjusts things. But I think, for the initial parts of it, really proud of what Bryce did. I think he can be proud of his body of work, the improvement. And that was what was reflected in that decision. But how that moves forward, it's hard for me to kind of anticipate and make a prediction on that.
This day is
Couple more
normally
guys.
this day is normally a lot closer to the season opener. How do you plan to use this time now with you having so much time in between?
Yeah.
In particular, how can this benefit Matt Stafford?
Yeah, so the interesting thing is we've got the next couple days to try to get out here, keep the guys fresh, but make sure that we're getting their legs back underneath them, keeping them mentally and physically sharp. And then this is the first time for me that, they're mandated to have Friday and Saturday and Sunday off. So that's 3 days where normally you could kind of put a day in between those and kind of strategically set it up that way. So the interesting thing is we want to maximize the next couple days, do a good job of that, with really all 3 phases of our football team. We'll get the practice squad guys back for the walkthrough and for the practice, where today was just reflective of those guys on the, on the 53 were able to participate. So it was more of a modified, shortened practice. So we'll use the next 2 days, and then I know that our guys will be smart, over the weekend, and then we'll get into a normal weekly game rhythm next week, with Monday being a bonus day for us.
Are you comfortable?
You looked sharp on the set yesterday too, man. I saw you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Are you comfortable with a couple of different positions? Are you comfortable with 3 running backs, and then comfortable once Obo has to be moved? Are you comfortable with the depth at outside linebacker?
We are. I think you understand. There's some hope, Jordan, that we get some guys back on the practice squad that, with some of the things that carry over from last year's COVID, you do have the ability to potentially flex guys up. So that gives you a little bit of peace of mind. The outside linebacker position was one that there was a lot of, tough decisions to be made. But with the running back spot, I think when you look at it, you always thought it would be 3. And I thought Jake Funk did a really good job of making a case that I think you can really trust him to play a role on teams and on offense for us in that September 12th game. And, we'll be interested to see how quickly Sony gets up to speed. And then you guys know the confidence that I have in Darryl. But definitely, things that you talk about. But I did always envision 3 guys going into the game, being up and active for us, no more than that.
And Xavier, obviously waived with the injury. So is he somebody you guys want to bring back on IR, or is?
I would say I think he's going to actually, unfortunately, require surgery on that thing, which is a shame because he did a great job of really putting together a really good camp. Thought he played really well and had some good, tough, hard-earned yards against Denver. Those are the things that are just really hard, but he's going to come back. He's a guy that we definitely want to continue to work with. Some of the semantics as far as how that's structured with the settlements and things like that, I don't want to get too far into the weeds on that, but really pleased, and it's unfortunate that he is going to have to get surgery of that Achilles.
Your 53, are they 100% vaccinated? Do you have 100% vaccination?
There's only one that isn't, and I don't want to say who it is just out of respect, but 52 out of 53 is not bad, right?
Right, but does that cause you any concern that you have someone?
No, because that person has done an incredible job of demonstrating all the precautionary measures that you would ask and that you would require. And I'll tell you what I'm very legitimately concerned about is the fact that now you're seeing guys come up with positives that are fully vaccinated, that I do trust are making smart decisions off the field. And like I'm sure we all feel, you just want to know, all right, what can we do to implement smart strategic procedures and processes that limit this being a factor for us? Because whether it's Joe DeCamillis, Eric Yarber, now you talk about Coleman Shelton, Johnny Hecker's missed time, you're talking about all guys that have been fully vaccinated. And now it's like, okay, how do we make sure that we're understanding exactly, what those things are that we can do and implement so that it doesn't become a distraction for our football team? And I think that's going to be the case for the other 31 teams as well. So that's the thing that, trying to work through, and it's something that we've got to get figured out, and I need to do a good job of getting a handle on so that you don't have it as any sort of crutch, and it won't be an excuse for us. I can promise you that.
Can I just ask a quick
Sure.
follow-up on that? Were any decisions based on COVID related?
No, definitely not.
So
No,
nobody
was not. That was a zero factor in terms of our decision making, Kevin. All right, thank you guys.
Thanks, Sean.